Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Courage On. My name is Happy Ferrarin, and I will be your host today. I'm joined by Jules. Hello, Jules.
Hello, ito po, nanunumbalik ang aking internet. Ang galing-galing naman, kakasimula pa lang. Pero anyway, ako po si Jules Giyang, Head of Community ng Rappler. So ito po ang, syempre, Courage On. And happy, this show is a community show produced by Rappler Civic Engagement Arm, Move PH, of course, in partnership with the Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom, Alt Mobility PH, and hashtag Ilog Pasiglahin and hashtag No to PAREX movement. We spotlight the pressing issues in the Philippines and the ways we can take action on them together. So welcome to episode 6. Grabe,
Ayan.
episode 6 na tayo.
Episode 6. Welcome, everyone. This is also co-presented by Living Laudato Si and Oikonomedia. And of course, this is coming to you live in all of Rappler's platforms, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, pati na rin LinkedIn. So this is live na live po tayo. Pwede kayo mag-comment at makikita namin ang mga comments nyo. If you have any questions or any ideas that you want to share, please feel free to do so. Jules, sino pang mga kasama natin for today?
All right, I think I'm back, Happy. Okay, so
Okay.
of course, aside from all our partners, no, we are also cross-posted in other organizations. We have Alt Mobility, as mentioned earlier. We have Living Laudato Si, Oikonomedia, Likha Pahinaria, Now You Know, Habitat for Humanity Blue Chapter, GPP Kalikasan, kasama rin natin ang ASEAN Youth Rotary Club Madrigal, Gabriel Sanctuary, Sigaw ng Kabataan Coalition, Renacimiento Manila, Youth Strike for Climate PH, Greens PH, Greenpeace Philippines, UP One Earth or Up One Earth, Assorted, Filipino Youth Against PAREX, and Move as One Coalition. Maraming salamat po sa pag-partners para sa ating show this afternoon.
Ayan. Ang ganda, Jules. Para siyang sponsor role, pero all of them are people who are working on the ground trying to make a
Yes.
difference. So I'm really glad that's our parang sponsor role for today, are all people, regular citizens trying to make a difference. So again, we are coming to you live. Just use the hashtag #CourageOn if you want to join in the conversation.
That's right. So gamitin nyo lang po ang hashtag na yan. And of course, Happy, before we proceed, singit lang natin. Batiin natin ulit ang ating Rappler CEO, Maria Reza, for winning the the Nobel Peace Prize yesterday. Grabe, di ba? That's the first ever award for a Filipino as an individual. So we are so proud. And of course, this win represents the plight and the advocacy for in defending press freedom here in the Philippines.
Correct. So thank you very much. And as mentioned earlier also, this was not possible without the community that surrounded Rappler, that fought with us, that stayed strong with us. So maraming salamat sa lahat ng nanonood right now. Yesterday, alam mo, it was so hectic. All our reporters, everyone, we were in the middle of coverage of the COC. Tapos biglang nag-announce. None of us were prepared, pero ang sarap ng feeling, diba, Jules? Yung title ng show na to ay Courage On, and that was the battle cry of Rappler for the past few years. And yesterday, Courage won. So thank you.
Yes.
Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat. Courage wins, and we can win, we can continue.
Courage win. Yes, at syempre tuloy-tuloy itong pagpapanalo natin para sa press freedom at sa lahat ng mga advokasya para syempre sa social justice. Okay, so anyway, kahapon, Happy, no? Katatapos lang ng COC filing at nakita natin for the past how many days since October 1st, ang daming mga naganap. At syempre, ngayon naman, tatalakayin naman natin itong isa pang trending issue, ang Pasig River Expressway o mas nakikilala bilang PAREX. Baka nakikita nyo na yan sa maraming mga posts sa social media at mga hashtags tulad ng hashtag No to PAREX.
Yes, so this is, in this 6th episode of Courage On Community Show, papag-usapan natin kung bakit umaalma ang mga transport, environment at heritage groups sa posibleng paggawa ng PAREX.
Alam mo, Happy, marami rin kasi nagulat sa bilis ng pag-approve at itong groundbreaking agad ng proyektong ito kahit wala pa ang Environmental Compliance Certificate na galing sana sa Department of Environment and Natural Resources.
Oo, at maraming maraming tao na nagsasabi na parang, alam mo, this might be like a death sentence to our Pasig River that we have been trying to rehabilitate for the last how many years. Tsaka, alam mo, if you think about kung anong sinasabi na PAREX, sinabi daw it's supposed to try and ease the traffic situation, pero a lot of people are saying, no, this is not true. It will actually make traffic worse. Kung nakikita natin some examples like in other cities, sa Seoul and San Francisco, meron mga similar projects na ganito. At ngayon, parang they're tearing down these previous infrastructure projects kasi they learned that it doesn't work. So parang, how come we're not learning this lesson? Alam mo yon, na parang nagawa na siya sa ibang bansa. Bakit pa natin gagawin ulit yung mistakes of other people? Uulitin natin, 'di ba? We should be learning from mistakes, not repeating them.
Correct. Yan ang tungkulin din syempre ng kasaysayan. Pero ibang topic na yun. Kaya naman para sa mga viewers natin, ano nga ba ang saloobin ninyo tungkol dito? Kailangan ba talaga ng bagong expressway para masolusyonan ang traffic problem natin? Ano pa ang makaya natin gawin bilang komunidad? Kaya naman i-share nyo lang dito sa ating chat box para sa makasama natin sa Zoom. At para naman sa social media, i-comment nyo lang po yan gamit ang ating hashtag #CourageOn.
Okay, so for those of you who are not really familiar about the conversation surrounding PAREX, maybe you are asking yourselves, ano ba ang meron dyan sa PAREX na yan? Why should I care about it? Bakit ba kailangan maging concerned about PAREX? I mean, highway lang naman yan. Marami naman tayong mga binibuild na, alam mo yon, na mga infrastructure projects. Why should we care about this? At paano ito makakaapekto sa ilog ng Pasig at sa mga iba't ibang residente ng Metro Manila? May at least right now 9,000 signatures sa current change.org petition na ongoing. So 9,000 people na tumututol dito sa proyektong ito at sinasabi nila hindi sila sang-ayon dito. So there's an ongoing change.org petition happening.
Right. So very timing yan, no? Very timely yan sa atin ngayon, Happy, kasi ang ating first discussion ngayong araw, meron tayong makakasamang mga advocates at isang Pasig resident mismo na magbibigay linaw kung paano naapektuhan ang ating kalikasan, ang mga komunidad sa Metro Manila at ang mga ilog ng Pasig dahil sa PAREX.
Okay, so right now, just to contextualize our conversation, we will just be flashing some fast facts for us to learn more about para we're all on the same page. Ano ba itong PAREX na ito? So let's flash on screen our first fact about the PAREX project. So what is the Pasig River Expressway?
Yes, alamin din natin, 'di ba, kung sino-sino bang mga parties ang involved dito, ano-anong mga grupo. Ano pa yung ibang bagay, Happy?
We'll also learn when we get the images flashing how much is this project, who will pay for it, so parang ano yung funding structure nito, and ano bang objectives ng project na ito.
So dapat talaga makialam yung ating mga kababayan kasi at the end of the day, lahat ng mga proyektong ilalagay o mga i-implement sa ating mga syudad, kailangan merong inputs yung ating mga communities. Okay, Happy?
Okay, sige. Sorry. So we're having technical difficulties. So that means that this show is live. So just really quickly lang, yung PAREX, basahin ko na lang siya. Yung una, this Pasig River Expressway, this happened when San Miguel Corporation proposed the construction of PAREX, which is a 19.4 kilometer elevated expressway along the Pasig River. So this will be on top of the Pasig River. And government approved this project noong September 21, a very ominous date, with the groundbreaking ceremony na nangyari 3 days after ng groundbreaking ceremony. So yan in general kung ano yung Pasig River Expressway. Tapos this one costs 95 billion pesos. So this is for to cover the design, construction, right of way cost, civil works, cleanup of river. So 95 billion pesos. So ang 95 billion pesos na yan manggagaling yan sa San Miguel Corporation because this is classified as a public-private partnership or PPP.
PPP.
Oo. So we will learn more about that later on also to see kung ano bang ibig sabihin nito and how that impacts this project. So yun lang so far. So just for some context before we move on to the next part of the conversation. Jules.
Okay, so ngayon alam na natin yung mga top line. At syempre sa mobilize din ng ating mga kababayan. Kaya naman sa ating first segment, tatalakayin natin kung bakit ang daming grupo at mga advocates ang nag-aalala sa posibleng pinsala na madudulot nito sa ating kalikasan, sa heritage at sa ating mobility. So
Ayun, mukhang nagkakaproblema si Jules. So while we wait for him to join us again, Jules,
all right, I think I'm back. Yes,
you are back. Yes.
Yes,
So go
this is
ahead
a
and introduce your guest.
this is a very interesting day for my Wi-Fi. I have 2 modems here at home pero dalawa sila nagkakaproblema. Anyway, once again, for our first segment, tatalakayin natin kung bakit ang daming mga grupo at mga advocates ang nag-aalala sa posibleng pinsala na madudulot nito sa ating kalikasan, sa heritage at mobility. Unang-una, kasama natin ang lead convener ng Youth Strike for Climate Philippines. Kasama natin si Jeff Estela. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. Magandang hapon po.
Hello. Siyempre makakasama rin natin ang co-founder ng Renacimiento Manila. Kasama natin si Bea Dolores. Hi, Bea.
Okay, hindi pa ako makapag-on ng video. Hello, magandang araw sa inyong lahat. Yarn.
Hi, Bea. Kasama rin natin mula naman sa Move as One Coalition. Kasama natin si Haya Bendanya. Hi, Haya.
Hello, nice to see you again, Jules. Hello po. Ayan na, naglag ulit si Jules. Sige po, kasama rin po natin si Kuya Miguel, isang estudyante mula sa Pasig. Kuya Miguel?
Hi, magandang hapon sa lahat.
Ayan.
Okay, sige. Hello, ako na lang sa sub kay Jules. So uso naman 'yan ngayon, 'di ba? So hello, thank you Haya for your energy ha. Ang saya ng energy mo. Thank you at nasalo mo si Jules. So okay, let's talk about for you Miguel. I think for a lot of us this seems like a very technical big large infrastructure project. Pero ikaw Miguel, you are a resident. This directly affects you. What's it like to live alongside the Pasig River and from your observations, how do you think this kind of project will affect residents like you?
Yeah, thank you, Happy. So yeah, sa ngayon naman, ang sa Pasig River, kalmado. Usually, way of life naman natin, dyan yung mga ingay, and dyan yung amoy. But necessarily, hindi naman siya, it was better since I was living, yung kabataan natin ng 90s. Kumpara mo yun sa ngayon, ibang-iba na siya. I mean, yung mga linear parks on the side. As in, it's not the same as before. So it got better ngayon. But sa akin, mas questions on how people will participate into the process. Kasi sa atin yun, sa ating right yun, para maging participants in a society. So yung una ko nakikita dito, yung lack of communication information. Kaya nangangamba yung mga tao. So yung question of air quality, yung heat impact nito, kasi makikita natin dun sa Skyway Project 3, dun sa area ng San Andres Housing, pag hinawakan mo yung mga gilid-gilid ng structure na yun, kahit yung mga bahay, makikita mo yung soot. Meron makapal Then it promotes also yung heat impact. So yun yung yung isang iniisip natin na mga problema. Tapos questions for the community along Pasig kasi may isang barangay dito, yung barangay Buhayang Bato sa Mandaluyong. It is near the Guadalupe Bridge. And ang iniisip ko dito kasi they're really stuck now. They're situated sa likod nila, yung buildings, if you go to Robinson's Pioneer, yung group of buildings na yun, then situated sila sa in between Pasig and those buildings. Tapos paglalagyan mo pa ng isang malaking structure like PAREX, may ipit sila sa gitna nun. How will that impact into their way of life? Then questions on extreme weather events kasi yun nga, Pasig River doesn't just happens to impact those cities aligning the Pasig River, but the bigger picture, yung buong Metro Manila, yung Laguna, Dibay. I mean, I have been in rescue before and I have been first witness dun sa Providence Village, sa Karangalan, nag-relief efforts rin kami sa Laguna and it took a really good time bago na push yung water from these tributaries palabas ng Manila Bay because this is the only river na ating naglabas ng tubig from Laguna de Bay. Then coming from a commuter din, kasi yun nga, napag-usapan din sa aming grupo na 88% naman ng public doesn't own a car. So, kung ang isang expressway, ang ilalagay mo dun, ano yung value dun sa isang normal na commuter? Ang sabi nila maglalagay doon ng BRT. But doon sa schematics na nilabas nila, for the public scrutiny period, kulang yung information na papaloob dito. Kumbaga rough schematics lang yung nilabas nila. So sa dulo, para sa akin as a Tagalog, taga-Ilog, gusto ko na meron akong pagkukuhanan ng impormasyon, yung mga dokumento na ito, ay may access ako para mag-take part ako at yung community ko doon sa process para sa kahit anong infrastructure development.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, happy, very important. Yeah, thanks Miguel. Very important dito, happy yung community consultation talaga. Kumbaga hindi pwedeng bigla-bigla ka nalang magtayo ng isang malaking napakahabang flyover dyan tapos noon hindi mo kinoconsult yung mga communities involved. Next naman tanongin natin si Bea. Ito very interesting din kasi especially maraming lugar sa dadaanan ng Pasig River ay merong mga heritage sites. For example, di ba, Intramuros kasama na dyan. So Bea, from your end, from the end of your organization din, bakit ito malaking issue para sa ating heritage?
Ayun. Ang Ilog Pasig actually is heritage itself. So, kailangan nating itatak yan sa ating puso at isipan. Ang Ilog Pasig ay ilog natin. Ito ay, kumbaga, mawawalan ng saysay kung may PAREX ang pinagmulan ng Maynila, ng Luzon, at ang dahilan kung bakit may Pilipinas. Masyadong broad or masyadong OA ba pakinggan, pero hindi Yun yung katotohanan na dahil sa Pasig River, nagkaroon ng mga kingdoms. May 3 mayayaman na kingdoms. Tapos actually sa mouth nito, kung nasaan ang Intramuros ngayon, doon nagsimula yung mayaman na kingdom ng Lusong. Kaya tayo may Luzon ngayon dahil dyan sa mayaman na parteng yan. At ito ay nakasituate mismo sa bunganga ng Pasig River. Tapos ito yung dahilan kung bakit mayroong rich trade and commerce dyan na pinagpuntahan ng mga taga-China, mga taga-India, Japanese, bago pa man dumating ang mga Kastila. At yun din mismo, yung rich na trade and commerce sa mouth ng Pasig River, ang dahilan kung bakit nga naman nahumaling yung mga Espanyol na nasa may Cebu nung panahon na yon na, ay, ang yaman-yaman pala dun sa parteng yun, dun nga natin puntahan para sakupin. Kaya nakasakop nila yung Maynila at ito yung dahilan kung bakit nagkaroon ng Pilipinas. Imagine the gravity and power of Pasig River. Yan. Tapos, kailan lang ba tayo nagkaroon ng kalsadang mga konkreto? So that's just very recent, di ba? And imagine, so mga panahon pa lang ng Spanish colonial period, Pasig River pa rin, yan ang ginawang highway natin, ang expressway, daluyan ng lahat ng mga ginawa at mga kumbaga buhay natin. Trade and commerce, lahat ng mga cities, kumbaga kung bakit may mga mayayaman na cities sa Metro Manila dahil sa Pasig River. Diyan nagdadaanan lahat, ganon. At sobrang dami pa. So,
Yeah, very interesting yung perspective mo kasi kanina sinishare ni Miguel yung on-the-ground experiences ng isang resident mismo, nasa commuter. And now, Bea, you're providing context naman, historical context, yung context ng heritage. And I remember parang sa No Limit Tanghiri ata nabanggit many times yung Pasig, di ba? So talagang ingrained talaga siya sa history natin, sa kamalayan natin. And nakakahiya naman sa mga bayani natin na talagang nakita nila before yung kayamanan ng Ilog Pasig. Tapos ngayon makikita natin siyang natabunan na ng isang napakalaking kalsada. So thank you, Bea, for that perspective. From the heritage and historical perspective, now we proceed to the transportation perspective. And we have Haya here, who is part of a coalition that, of course, focuses on this matter. So Haya, how does this affect ba our transportation crisis? Sinasabi nila, dagdag dagdag road yan para yung ibang mga kotse at ibang mga bikers natin doon na lang daw dadaan. Pero from your end, as an advocate, ano ang pananaw niyo dito?
Mars, more road equals
Yes, Mars.
more traffic. Ayan, Mars. Okay, ito kasi yun. Parang before then, akala ko na the more tayong mag-build ng kalsada, the more masosolve yung traffic problem natin. Pero ever since dineklara tayo as pinakamalalang traffic sa buong mundo, we've been building more roads. Build lang tayo ng mga kalsada. Pero ganun pa rin naman. Kasi may konsepto kung saan mas maraming kalsada, mas maraming tao actually yung bibili ng kotse. At to combat that, sana yung pondo na ibibigay sa pagbili at sa pag-build ng kalsada ay ibigay na lang para ma-improve ang public transport natin, para gumawa ng infrastruktura for bike lanes, for example, for active transport para sa mga naglalakad. Kasi ito yung nagkikater sa 88% ng mga Pilipino na hindi naman afford ang kotse. Hindi natin kailangan na mas maraming highway sa Metro Manila. Girl, lahat na highway. Parang left and right, lahat na semento. Ang kailangan natin ay infrastructure at mga serbisyo na para sa karamihan ng mamamayang Pilipino. Kasama dito ang maayos sa public transport, magandang public terminals, hindi na masyadong madaming highway na ang nakakadaan lang naman ay may mga kotse. At mga pangalawa, yung kaya magbayad ng pagkamahal-mahal na toll fees ng San Miguel. Mars, parang one way, nasa lagpas 250 yan. Ang manggagawang Pilipino, ang sahod sa isang araw, 500 plus. Sino ang dadaan dyan? Two-way mo, wala na yung buong sahod mo for the whole day. So what we want is an infrastructure and a transportation solution that is for the 88% of Filipinos.
Thank you, Haya, for providing that perspective on the transpo. Lalo na very important yan, no, kung ano yung perspective ng mga mananakay natin, lalo na sa mga jeepney sector natin. Now, from the transportation sector naman, pag-usapan naman natin for the project itself on the NBI side. Si Jeff, kasama natin si Jeff. Hi, Jeff. So, dun sa project description kasi nitong proyektong to, sabi ng SMC, PAREX can help complement ferry boats along the Pasig River kasi meron ding mga ferry boats na dumadaan dyan. So sa tingin nyo ba, potential ito or may feasibility ba ito given the potential harms na pinag-uusapan natin ngayon? And how will that affect itong ferry boats natin na hindi pa nga ganoon kalawak yung suporta?
Thanks, Jules. No, kanina nabanggit na nga ng iba nating mga kasama yung epekto sa iba't ibang sektor. Sa environment, sobrang lala nung epekto nitong PAREX. Bago ko simulan yung sagot about sa ferry boat service, no, nakakalungkot isipin kasi ang mindset ng mga Pilipino, kumbaga, yung mga Pilipino, tayong mga Pilipino, very deprived tayo sa social services na kumbaga, pag may nakita tayong mga tinatayo, yes, proud to be Filipino, yes, may bagong ospital, may bagong kalsada, may bagong ganito. ang saya-saya natin, no? But that very mindset is very dangerous because hindi naman kailangang itayo. Hindi naman natin kailangan lahat magkaroon ng kalsada, 'di ba? Kayo na nga nabanggit na mas maraming kalsada, mas maraming kotse. And mas maraming kotse, mas maraming carbon emissions. Mas maraming carbon emissions, mas maraming greenhouse gases. Mas maraming greenhouse gases, mas iinit ang mundo. No, mas lalala yung climate change na or climate crisis na tinatawag natin ngayon. At maglalagay ka pa ng highway sa ibabaw ng ilog, ang ilog Pasig, yan na lang ang natitirang pinakamalaking kumbaga cooler ng buong Manila. Sobrang mainit sa Manila, tas tatakpan mo pa ng isang dambuhaling semento. Imagine the heat, the noise, and the pollution that it will create. And linking that to the ferry service, because my thesis kasi in this college is about the Pasig River Ferry Service. That's very dangerous for the ferry itself because tama nga, hindi na nga maganda yung serbisyo kasi hindi ini-improve yung ferry service at lalagyan mo pa ng ferry ng konkretong highway yung dadaanan ng ferry service, it will affect the direction, the water current, delikado sa mga ferry service, sa ferry boats, and also yung mga particulate matter na babagsak galing sa taas ng konkretong highway, babagsak sa mismo mga tao. Hindi lang tao, yung riders, yung operators, and even the organisms na pinipilit lang sinasabi na patay na ang Pasig pero hindi naman. Pero meron mga buhay pa rin doon kahit sabihin nilang ganun, no? So, ang daming factors na very dangerous kapag itong PAREX project na ito ay natuloy sa environment.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for that perspective on the envy. So nasakop natin lahat from the residents' point of view, heritage, history, transportation, and of course, environment. And I guess that explains kung bakit nagtitrend ito si hashtag no to PAREX. So for our viewers right now, especially the residents affected directly, and even those people not directed, how can they help in this advocacy? Kasi yun nga, nakapag-groundbreaking na and all. Sa tingin nyo, ano pa yung mga pamamaraan na pwedeng gawin ng mga organizations and communities para mapigilan itong PAREX project na ito? Let's proceed first with the resident, no? Si Miguel Lopez. Ano sa tingin mo yung mga pwedeng gawin na makasamahan nyo dyan, mga kapitbahay ninyo?
Ayun, actively participate tayo sa mga programs ng gobyerno. And first thing that we need to do is to ask for them na mag-produce mga dokumento. Ang problema kasi sa situation natin ito, isa siyang private-public partnership. And with that, kasi, dealing with private corporations, it's kind of hard getting these documents from them. So ano yung proseso? Yun yung unang sa akin tanong, ano yung proseso para makuha yung mga dokumento nito para ma-review ng taong bayan? Kung karapat-dapat ba talaga itong project na to?
Thanks, Miguel. How about you, Bea?
Another thing is for you to be active din sa inyong barangay. Kausapin mo ang pamilya mo, kapitbahay mo. Ano nga ba ang magiging epekto nito sa atin personally? Sa Pasig River Expressway, kumusta nga ba ang stability ng lupa dito sa may tabi ng lugar natin? Paano kaya kapag nagka-the big one tapos may dambuhalang semento malapit sa lugar natin? Ano pang mga risks ang pwedeng makaapekto sa iyo yung pang-araw-araw mo? For example, kung ikaw mismo mapastudyante ka man, nakikipagsapalaran ka sa Metro Manila at ang Pasig River pala ay solace mo kasi diyan ka nagsisenti kapag sobrang ng trabaho mo. At so masisira yung yung peace mo, masisira yung ng ingay, ng yung preskong hangin mo, mapuput at a price pa ba yan? Mapapano yan? Mapapano yung lahat ng tinatamasa mo ngayon dahil sa magkakaroon ng isang expressway na malalang harurot ng mga sasakyan, grabe yung alikabok na mapupunta sa'yo, at yung mga other risks pa, what if magkaroon ng the big one? Tapos, hindi naman talaga maayos ang stability ng lupa dyan sa lugar ninyo.
Right. Thank you, Bea. How about you, Haya, for Transpo?
Hi, ma'am. Well, hindi lang to for transpo, pero wanted to say na kausapin ang inyong mga barangay officials. Ako naniniwala na kahit madaming tahimik ngayon sa issue, maraming barangay officials ang tutol din sa PAREX, pero nahihirapan mag-make ng stance kasi wala silang citizen support mula sa mismong residente ng Pasig. So para maudyok natin ang ating mga government officials sa ating mga barangay na magsalita laban sa proyekto, kailangan samahan natin sila. At that movement ay kailangan ng mga citizens gaya natin, gaya ikaw, gaya ako, lahat tayo na lumapit, mag-organisa at mag-push ng ating mga barangay officials. Ayun lang.
Salamat, Taya. Para sa invite, Jeff, ano ang iyong suggestion?
Siguro for me, no, dahil nasabi na naman ng ating ibang mga kasama, i-make sure natin na dapat ang framing ng PAREX issue ay hindi lang dahil taga Pasig City ako, taga NCR ako, or taga Luzon. But the issue will, kumbaga, yung issue ay maapektuhan lahat ng Pilipino in the near future because this project is really dangerous that it will put the future of the next generations at risk. Kaya mahalaga na makita nating mga Pilipino na ito ay hindi lang issue ng mga taga Luzon, mga taga Pasig, NCR, but an issue that will really massacre the Pasig River as an environmental living thing and at the same time the cradle of the Filipino civilization.
Okay, maraming salamat sa iyo, Jeff. Ang ganda ng inyong mga points sa ating calls to action ninyo, no? So we need to participate in the process. So requesting the documents, transparency, accountability yan. We need to ask questions on possibilities na pwede mangyari kapag naitayo na yan. Sabi ni Haya, we need to engage with our officials and assure them na may citizen support para ma-feel nila na may solidarity yung mga citizens. And of course, this is an issue that will gravely affect our environment. Sabi nga ni Jeff, it will massacre basically the Pasig River. So thank you so much for your points of view, no? Sana nakatulong ito para mas ma-contextualize ang ating PAREX issue mula sa iba't ibang mga perspectives. Nakasama natin muli ang lead convener ng Youth Strike for Climate Philippines, Jeff Estela. Kasama rin natin co-founder ng Renacimiento Manila, Bea Dolores. And of course, Haya Bindanya ng Move as One Coalition. And we have also a Pasig resident, Miguel Lopez. Thank you so much sa inyong apat at sana mas marami pang mga kababayan natin ang sumuporta sa inyong mga advocacies at sana maging election issue rin ito. All right. So thank you so much to all of you. Okay. So ngayon, tawagin natin muli si Happy para syempre silipin natin maraming mga comments ang ating mga kasamahan dito sa Zoom. Happy.
Ayun. Hello, Jules.
Sige, basa tayo.
Buti nakasama ka ulit. So actually, this really struck me. This one is coming from Althea from the Zoom room. She mentioned, bottom line, actually, hindi inclusive ang transportation structure ng Metro Manila. So I like the word that she used na inclusive kasi who are we building these roads for ba talaga? Are we building it for majority of the population or just the 20% who own cars? So thank you, Althea, for that message. Meron rin tayong ibang mga messages, Jules?
Yes, sabi naman ni Dina ito. Speaking of asking our officials, sabi ni Dina Dayaw, tanungin natin ang mga mayor natin kung pabor ba sila o hindi sa PAREX at kailan nila kukonsultahin ang mga residenteng tulad natin. Yan. So encouragement to, lalo na paparating na ang eleksyon.
Right. Tapos going through rin our materials when we asked also the Facebook and the social media followers of Rappler about this, meron rin silang mga na-submit na mga answers. So we'll be reading some of them out right now.
Yes, so ito yung question na tinanong natin, permanenteng solusyon ba sa traffic ang pagtayo ng mga bagong kalsada? So sabi ng ating first ni at Papam Cody 1. Okay, sabi niya, stop greedy companies from taking advantage of a corrupt government and trying to fool us with benefits of the project. They do it because it will be profitable. To hell with the environment, the people, the affected community, unmask the fake concern of this greedy company.
Ayun, very strong words. Meron rin
Mhm.
tayo, someone saying, for me, yes, but not in the existing road areas. What I mean, tulad ng Pasig River to Laguna Lake, dapat isa sa maging pangunahing location pagtatayuan ng kalsada, not in EDSA, not in the South Expressway, para matigil ang traffic congestion.
Okay, salamat sa iyo. Sabi naman ni Rick Abusmas, kapag dumarami ang sasakyan, dapat dumarami din kalsada. Otherwise, there will be traffic congestion. Okay, so ibang perspectives, happy na kukuha natin.
Yes, actually, and I think Haya was one who mentioned that a while ago, that it's actually counterintuitive kasi to what we think. Akala natin the more roads we build, that it will actually stop traffic. But napag-aralan na ito ng maraming eksperto in the Philippines, all around the world. I know it's a very counterintuitive idea to grasp, pero the more roads you build, it actually just attracts more traffic. So it doesn't necessarily mean na more roads equals less traffic. Meron pa ba tayong next submission? Ayun, okay. This one is from Jovita Turalba Bergstrom. Yes, and why not? Pero kailangan siguro effective ang plano dyan. Dapat siguro may sariling linya yung public transportation para at least hindi abala sa traffic doon sa mga nagko-commute na workers. So Jovita is in favor of it. Sige, next, Jules.
Alright, sabi naman ni Jack Duldulao, we need a more efficient mass transportation system to limit the volume of private vehicles running, to phase out old vehicles within 15 years, to encourage a work-from-home scheme if applicable, and to improve traffic management system. Alright. Okay. So, ang dami pa actually. Ito, meron pa happy dito sa Zoom. May mga nagbibigay din ng mga comments nila. Yeah, so we have Rain Lozano. This is unfair for other Filipinos because other Filipinos don't have private cars. And this is a big deal for environment issue. Kaya no to PAREX.
Ayun.
Sabi naman ni Rodney Galicia. Okay, si Kuya Rodney ng Living Laudato Si. Isa ring Toym awardee yan, si Rodney. Sabi niya, saying yes to PAREX is also fueling other environmentally degrading projects of San Miguel Corporation, such as coal-fired power plants, natural gas, and reclamation projects, among others. So ganun ka-complex, happy, no? Yung issue na to. Kasi kumbaga, parang you're saying to this, ibig sabihin parang okay lang for other projects na detrimental to environment.
Yeah, you're setting a precedent to others na instead of maybe more sustainable alternatives, ang mga na may mainstream pa na ideas are ideas like this, which, you know, is controversial and a lot of people have been disagreeing with. So maraming salamat for all of you who have been sharing. I'm just also taking a look at the participants list. Marami tayong mga bigatin na tao watching today. So thank you very much for joining us and for all your great insights and ideas that you're sharing. I'm sorry we can't get to all of them, but thank you. And I think, Jules, alam mo kanina during the panel that you were doing a while ago, alam mo, this reminds me of the topic of one of our episodes before about the Dumaguete reclamation project. Parang same yung nangyari, diba? Yung parang wala siyang consultation, bigla na lang na-approve, and then nagulat na lang lahat ng mga residente, meron na palang parang ganitong nangyayari. So, you know, it's happening not just in Metro Manila but in other parts of the country as well.
Kaya nga, syempre happy, di ba, if we're talking about traffic, hindi ibig sabihin na dapat magtayo na nga tayo ng bagong expressway, just like you mentioned. May iba pa na pwedeng magawa, lalo na doon sa 95 billion ang budget. And of course, happy dito rin sa Pilipinas, nakikita natin na pwede rin naman mag-coexist itong infrastructure development at pag-preserve ng river.
Yes, and we don't have to look far, Jules. We don't have to look at other countries kasi meron naman mga magagandang infrastructure projects na nangyayari. So like for example, in Iloilo, the Esplanade that they have, mukhang a lot of the residents themselves, they are very proud of it. You know, every time I meet someone from Iloilo, they are very proud of that. Doon kayo magpapasyal. So very, very nice way to integrate transport. You know, it also encouraged people to bike. It was friendly to the environment. So yun yung magandang parang talaga siya naging livable city, and it existed alongside the river, it existed alongside the ecosystem that was there without having to destroy or disrupt the existing things that were already there.
Alam mo, happy ka ang tawag dyan, sustainable cities. Kasama yan sa Sustainable Development Goal. Sana po i-consider yan ng ating mga officials. Alam mo, happy, isa lang yan sa mga pwede nating gawin. Kaya dapat talaga iwasan natin itong mga car-centric na pag-iisip, na mindset ng mga policies, lalo na kung gusto natin solusyonan ang traffic.
Ayan. And thank you for that word, solutions. Now let's talk solutions. This is what the second segment will be all about. So we know what the problems are, but what are the solutions that we can take on moving forward? Kung sinasabi natin, gusto natin ng more sustainable infrastructure, what does that look like? Ano bang ibig sabihin ng sustainable model of building our cities and the infrastructure for the future of all of us in the Philippines? So makakasama natin ngayon sa second segment sa diskusyon na ito. Kasama po natin ngayon si Sonny Sevilla. He is part of the Move as One Coalition and former Finance Undersecretary din siya. Hello and welcome, Sonny.
Ay, magandang hapon. Magandang hapon sa lahat ng mga nakikinig.
Hello. And also with us, spokesperson siya ng Green Party of the Philippines at former member ng Pasig River Rehabilitation Commission. So meron siyang experience doing rehabilitation work sa Pasig River. Rich Peñaflor is with us today. Hello, Rich. Welcome.
Hi, magandang hapon, Miss Happy and Mr. Jules and to other panelists. Nagagalak po ako na napag-uusapan natin yung mga ganitong relevant issues nowadays. Maski na marami pang issues na kakabit ito. So, good afternoon to everybody and to all the listeners and watchers, viewers.
Ayun. Welcome, Rich. And of course, fresh from another event, we're very glad that you were able to join us. Urban designer and current chairman of the Board of Landscape Architects at the Professional Regulation Commission, Mr. Paulo Alcazarin. Welcome. Welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us today.
Salamat. Thank you for having me, and good afternoon to everyone.
Okay, so very exciting. Just reading about all the experiences that you have and all the ideas that you have been sharing about PAREX so far. I want to know, so let's go back muna to the experience of PAREX. Sonny, I'd like to throw this question to you. So sinabi nila parang ang bilis ng pag-approve ng project na ito. How long usually ba ang mga PPP projects or public-private partnership, how long usually is the turnaround time from proposing to actual approval and completion? And meron ba, sino ba ang overall parang governing body dito who looks after the monitoring of these projects? So
yes, okay, thanks Happy. Normally kasi ang mga public-private partnership projects, government ang nagko-conceptualize, government ang nagpuput together at nag-aaral ng project. And only kapag fully studied na yung project, saka pa lang yan i-bid out for a private company to participate. Ano? Ngayon, in this particular case, baliktad ang nangyari, hindi ito government project. Nag-umpisa ang project na ito sa San Miguel. Okay, so this is tawag dito. This is a private initiative, not a government project. So dun pa lang iba siya dun sa normal process ng project. Now, normally, okay, pag ang project ay nag-umpisa sa private proponent, okay, magsasabit niya ng proposal doon sa tawag nito doon sa agency, doon sa government agency na responsible for the kind of infrastructure project that it is. So halimbawa, kung expressway ang pinag-uusapan natin, normally isasubmit yung proposal niya sa DPWH. Kasi ang mga expressway ay DPWH ang may authority, ang may responsibility. And then, dadaan yan sa masusing analysis, okay? And then may approval process yan na ang government agency na siyang namumuno sa pagsusuri ng and sa approval process is NEDA. Okay? Pag ginawa ng pag-aralan ng NEDA yan, saka pa lang gagawa ng recommendations ang NEDA and then i-approve yan sa cabinet level committee. So NEDA doesn't have the authority to approve the project by itself. Aakit pa yan sa cabinet. No? Magre-recommend lang ang NEDA. I want to emphasize, hindi sinundan ang process na yan in the case of PAREX. Ulitin ko, hindi sinundan ang normal process ng assessment ng public-private partnerships in the case of PAREX. Okay? Now, bakit hindi nasundan yun? Okay? Well, hindi nasundan yan dahil naniniwala ang gobyerno, okay, na dahil sa isang lumang batas from martial law period yet, 1977, okay, siguro karamihan ng mga millennials ngayon hindi masyadong kabisado yung company na PNCC. No? PNCC ay isang kumpanya na tinayo nung time ni President Marcos. Anyway, di ko na pahahabain masyado ang kwento. Pero kasi originally, ang unang expressway sa Pilipinas, NLEX tsaka SLEX. Okay? And PNCC ang gumawa at nagpatakbo ng NLEX at SLEX. Okay? At nung tinayo ang PNCC, binigyan ng government ng rights, ang PNCC ng rights na magtayo ng extensions sa NLEX at SLEX. Okay? Ngayon, yung batas na nag-create ng PNCC, binigyan ng 30-year franchise period ang PNCC. Yung 30-year franchise period na yun, nag-expire noong 2007 at hindi na yan na-renew. Okay? Pero sinasabi ng government na kahit nag-expire na yung franchise ng PNCC, pwede pa rin gumawa ng bagong projects ang isang company na may joint venture with PNCC at hindi na yan kailangan dumaan sa normal process ng mga PPP. Yun ang dahilan kung bakit hindi napabid. Kasi kung susundan yung normal process na nasa Build, Operate, Transfer Law or yung BOT law, from conceptualization until procurement, naabuti ng at least mga 2 years yun. No? Kasi talagang pag-aaralan ng mabuti. Tsaka government na ang mag-aaral, hindi yung private.
Correct.
No? Ito, in-initiate ng private, mabilis lang yung approval process. And yung approval process, hindi dumadaan sa ganun ka-detailed na study. No? So, ang nag-approve lang nito is the Toll Regulatory Board, which is an agency that is under the OTR. No? So, talagang napabilis yung approval. And point out ko din, wala pang environmental clearance ang project na ito. Okay? In fact, importante yan kasi dun sa mga nagtatanong kanina, ano yung magagawa, kung tuto tayo sa PAREX, ano yung magagawa natin para mahinto pa ito? Okay? Isa sa mahalagang bagay na pwedeng gawin ng kahit sino sa atin, no? Ay sumulat sa DENR, Environmental Management Bureau, magtanong kailan magkakaroon ng public hearing, public consultation, ano-ano na ang mga pag-aaral na ginawa sa environmental aspects ng PAREX, okay? At kailan magkakaroon ng public hearing para maitanong ng lahat ng concerned parties, no? Kung ano and makapagbigay ng sariling saloobin at makapag-contribute dun sa process ng environmental assessment ng PAREX ang kahit sino man. Importante yun, wala pang environmental clearance. Groundbreaking na, pero wala pang environmental clearance ito.
Right. Thank you for pointing that out, Sunny, and giving us parang the lay of the land in terms of how this is a governance issue actually. So parang may mga processes na hindi nasundan, may mga shortcuts or loopholes na nagamit, and pero good to know na may chance pa. So if you heard that, I'll just reiterate. So pwede through DENR we can demand and ask kailan ba ang consultation period na ito. So salamat, Sunny. Reach, I'll go to the next question. I'll throw the next question to you, Reach. You have experience doing rehabilitation for the river. So based on this project, meron daw component na rehabilitation nung Pasig River. I'd like to ask, is the proposed thing that they're gonna do for the rehabilitation, is it enough? What do you think? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, isa sa mga objective ng PAREX is magkaroon daw ng cleaning of the Pasig River through dredging. So they will dredge the area, which is tama naman. Every so often, kailangan natin ng dredging activity sa Pasig River. Parang ano yan yung pupo na dapat from time to time inaalis para yung effective way for the flow of the water mas malawak, mas malaki. So pwede nila siguro umpisahan muna in other areas like in Tullahan River, dun sa Polo, Valenzuela, di ba, where situated ang San Miguel Brewery, pwedeng dun muna tayo mag-test. But with the Pasig River, ginawa natin yan in 2017, 2018 under the Danish government finance. Na-dredge yung Pasig River, tapos yung mga silted materials dinala sa gitna ng Manila Bay. Meron silang hinukay doon, ang tawag nila is UPOC, underground placement with over-depth capping. So, nandun lahat ng mga inaano. So, okay naman yung gagawin na yon. But, tama ba yung proseso na gagawin nila na ura-urada, gawin mo yon? Kasi merong similar situation that we have right now, yung paggawa ng Skyway Stage 3 na nag-traverse dun sa San Juan River. Yung dating agency ko, Pasig River Rehabilitation Commission, kumontra na wag ituloy yung pagtatayo ng bridge over San Juan River dahil it will inundate the whole area. Babahain siya, may study sila for the next 10 years, babahain yon. So naglabi sila sa congressman, sa senator for stopping this. And then the next time, pinatawag sila sa Malacanang, akala nila they will be given a pat on the back ng presidente, pero it's the other way around. Sinermonan sila and they were asked to withdraw yung kanilang objection on the Skyway Stage 3. And then the next day, they were branded as corrupt. Tapos few more months, I think after 2 months, inabolish na yung Pasig River Rehabilitation Commission na established in 1999 during the time of President Erap. So now na wala na yung Pasig River Rehabilitation Commission to regulate this, mas madali na ngayon nila, yung, as what you had said earlier, Ms. Happy, na bakit napakadali ng proseso? Because wala nang commission or agency para mag-review kung ano man yung mga maiitim na balak, yung mga pros and cons. Besides na wala pa yung AEC, dapat meron kang environmental impact study na ginagawa. Yun yung katagne ng AEC mo. Wala pa din yun. So tama na meron pa tayong chance para harangin yan. Because may projection din na ang PAREX will inundate, will flood the whole area of, dadaanan niya is Mandaluyong, Makati, Pasig, and then the Rizal provinces. So, yun, may mga effort tayo na dapat gawin para ma-stop to because not all the benefits ma-outweigh yung cost o kung ano man yung ganda na pwedeng gawin na niya. So, para sa akin, no to PAREX talaga.
Okay. So may cost-benefit analysis na parang, you know, it's not worth it kung dredging lang pala habol mo. You can do that
Correct.
without building the PAREX. So
Tama.
thank you. Yeah. Ngayon naman kasama rin natin si Paulo Alcazaran. Paulo, we mentioned a while ago the Iloilo Esplanade, which you were a part of. So let's talk urban design and let's talk about you know, given they said that this part of the objective of the PAREX was to decongest traffic in Metro Manila, we know that there are things that are not ideal with the design. So, you know, for this segment, we said we wanted to talk solutions. What are the kinds of things that both the public and private sector can be focusing on to achieve really this decrease of traffic congestion in Metro Manila? Paulo.
Umpisa natin dyan sa konsepto ng traffic congestion or traffic as the problem to be solved. Traffic is not the problem. Traffic is just a symptom of the larger problem of the lack of a comprehensive mass-based transport system for a metropolis the size of Metro Manila. If you go to any other large metropolis all over the world, as you land, you see all of this same density at tall buildings. You will assume correctly that they have subways, they have MRTs, they have LRTs, they have a network of mass transport system. Sa atin wala. We have a few, but not enough, and it's running at not a full capacity. So it's not traffic that needs to be solved. It's transport, moving people and not cars. And any intervention like this is because of induced demand. We're just trying to deal with symptoms. Most of everything that has been tried in the last 20 years have been looking at attacking the symptoms and not the source of yung pinakamalaking problema is the fact that the 16 cities and one town in the metropolis has no proper coordinated planning, because transport infrastructure will only come after land use planning, which is not coordinated at all in Metro Manila, especially after the early 90s and the evolution of governance. There's no one looking at the overall strategy to solve our transport woes. We can't move people because people don't recognize political boundaries of the 17 LGUs, right? And then I need to also clarify my role as I'm a licensed and registered landscape architect and environmental planner. There are 4 professions in physical planning, which is architecture, interior design, landscape architecture, and environmental planning. These are all similar in that we address the spatial needs of people by creating buildings, the spaces inside the buildings, that's the interior designer, the buildings themselves, the architects, the spaces between the buildings are the landscape architects' purview. So we are not gardeners, which is the aspersion that's cast on us by Mr. Ang. We are not gardeners. We are somewhere between architecture and city planning, environmental. In fact, environmental planning is really what we do, and landscape architects in all other parts of, in the other countries and cities are very much embedded in the process of creating plans for cities, and these are physical plans, working with the urban planners and working with governments in a participatory process, which we actually have in our law with the comprehensive land use plans, except that in the Metropolitan Manila system, you have 17 CLUPs, very few of which are coordinated. In each CLUP, which is a 12-step process, there are 3 to 4 times where you have to consult stakeholders. But the problem is in a metropolitan issue of transport across boundaries. How do you identify the stakeholders? How do you consult them? And who is in charge? Because aside from the 17, you have the other agencies. You have DOTC, DOTR, DPWH, DRB, and so people ask me, why can't we solve anything? Is it a lack of political will? The problem is we have 17 political wills overlaid with 5 or 6 more political wills, aside from the agendas and political wills, which is much stronger, of large corporations that have the financial wherewithal, which are larger than most of the cities in Metro Manila. So that's the gist of our problem.
Thank you, Paulo. So we said that for the second segment, we want to try and take a crack at solutions, because I think the solutions are there. We have all the ideas and the creative energy to really come up with the solutions. They are there. But right now, I think for me, for example, it's hard for me to imagine kasi syempre hindi ko naman yan field of expertise. So I'll go around again and ask each of you, what would be the best case scenario? So for example, Sunny, in an ideal world, given that processes are followed or whatever, what would be the most ideal way to propose projects like this and make them happen? Sorry, projects that would be beneficial for the city.
I'm very, very glad that Paulo pointed out that our problem is not traffic. Traffic is the symptom, no? Traffic is the effect, no? And our problem is mobility. No? Our problem is transport. Now, let's talk specifically about PAREX. What is the problem that we are trying to solve? Okay? Whose movement, okay, are we trying to facilitate? Okay? Kasi let's go back. Sorry, this sounds boring, but let's go back to ano ba yung gusto nating lutasin? Okay, para saka natin mapag-isipan what's the best solution. And obviously PAREX is a east-west corridor. Okay, so it seems like, I mean, just looking at the way at the route, it is designed to make it easier to move people from Manila, no, from Intramuros, Binondo, okay, to what do you call this, to the Laguna Lake area, okay, connecting with C6, so east-west, okay. Now, what are the alternatives to building an expressway? Okay, well, number one, what we need to move is people. Okay, what we need to move is people, not cars. Okay, so number one is, can we make better use of the already existing east-west roads? What roads are we talking about? We're talking about Ortigas. Okay, we're talking about JP Rizal. We're talking about Marcos Highway. Okay, look at what the government did, to its great credit. Look at what the government did on EDSA by putting that EDSA carousel and giving priority lanes to buses in the middle of EDSA so that buses can move unaffected by the traffic on either side of the road. Okay, should have done it much earlier. It's great that they did it. Why don't we do that on Ortigas? Why don't we do that on other east-west roads so that without spending so much money, okay, we prioritize the needs of public transport users, and people who are riding on buses or jeeps or other forms of public transport can move. Many more can move, okay, faster than they do today. So that's one thing. That's one solution that I don't know whether anybody's taken a look at. Okay, it is great that finally the extension to LRT2. LRT2 is east-west. Okay, so there were 2 additional stations that were completed on the eastern side. I know government is working on an extension of the western side all the way to the port area. That's going to cover a similar area, okay, to where PAREX is going to go, but it's going to do it for using mass transport. That's a much better solution. Just recently, we heard about LRT4, okay, which will go from Quezon City, I think Aurora Boulevard, no, to Taytay, also east-west. Okay, so the rail plans plus potentially doing something similar or analogous to what's been done on EDSA. Okay, and making high-capacity public transport move faster on already existing roads. Okay, this can have a pretty good impact on moving more people in an east-west direction without the environmental and heritage negative impacts of an expressway. And don't forget, okay, PAREX will only serve at best, maybe 12 to 15% of the people who travel east-west. So
Right.
let's, so I hope I've given you some idea that there are other things that can be done without building PAREX that will still enable people to move faster within the same corridor.
Yes, absolutely. And they exist. So if it works, why not just replicate what works instead of spending a lot and building, wasting so much time, resources, and energy to build something that we're not even sure of. So if it works na, replicate. Thank
30
you.
seconds more, one more thing. Okay. The Pasig River, tawag dito, the ferry. Okay. I think it's a great idea to make the ferry work better. Okay, more frequent trips, maybe make them faster. Okay, but another thing that really should be part of any plans to improve the ferry is to improve the public transport connections from the ferry stations to the commercial areas where people need to go. Again, this can be done without spending a whole lot of money. In that.
Yes. Thank you, Sunny. So I'll move on to you, Reach. Tell us, what are better alternative ways to rehabilitate the Pasig River? Please unmute. Ang favorite
Sorry po.
phrase of the year. Okay
Yeah.
lang.
I have 4 reasons why I object the Pasig River Expressway. Number 1, PAREX will add more to the decay of the Pasig River. The Pasig River is the lifeline of our nation. Putting an expressway on top of the Pasig River will just change the natural habitat and natural interaction between land, water, and sky. Number 2, it is not a solution to the traffic congestion, but will encourage proliferation of more private vehicles. Mass public transport system is really the key to traffic decongestion. Number three, its main objective is to generate more income for San Miguel Corporation, my former employer. I worked with San Miguel for 12 years. Ploy lang yung solving traffic decongestion, cleaning the Pasig River, and complementing the Pasig River Ferry. And number four, it diminishes people's contact and appreciation of the river and waterway system. Mawawala yung mental health natin. We are supposedly stewards and caretakers of our environment and not defilers of our natures. However, I have two proposed solutions. Number one, we need to intensify the use of the Pasig River Ferry. The San Miguel Corporation can add more ferry boats and ferry stations. Much better if they will apply for its private operation. Kasi in the past years, 2007, 8, 9, nag-operate yung Pasig River Ferry using 6 ferry boats na meron siyang capacity na 200 packs. Right now, yung 6 na ferry boats nyo, naka-station na lang sa labas, malapit sa Polytechnic University of the Philippines. Why not bilhin lang yon, tapos mag-build pa ng more nun, tapos tama yung sinasabi ni Sir Sunny na magkaroon ng interconnection between the Pasig River ferry stations going dun sa mga MRT or LRT. That's number one. And number two, maximize the utilization of circumferential road, yung C6. As of now, hindi siya maximize eh. Ito yung nagko-connect from Metro Manila to Rizal area. We need to solve or address the bottleneck areas along C6 roads, especially yung Pasig and Taytay areas. Laging traffic dun eh. We need to widen the roads of C6 and install more lightings, especially during nighttime. Siguro ang San Miguel, kaya nilang i-widen pa yon. Doon sila pwedeng mag-charge ng toll fee. Tapos for every toll fee na ibabayad sa kanila, magbigay sila ng San Miguel coffee in exchange for the toll fee, o magbigay ng Ginebra San Miguel or beer. There are other ways to do things. Because nagawa namin yan sa Kapit Bisig para sa Ilog Pasig during the time ni Ma'am Gina Lopez under the ABS-CBN Foundation. Sadly, wala na ang ABS-CBN network, wala na ang Pasig River Rehabilitation Commission para kumontra dito, and wala na rin po si Ma'am Gina Lopez. She died in 2019. We were able to be successful in relocation of the informal settlers para ma-free up yung those ISF living on the 3 meters saka 10 meters. We were able to connect yung mga Poso Negro, yung mga septic tank of the household to the sewerage treatment plant ng Maynilad at saka Manila Water. Kasi right now, nasa 45 to 55% lang eh. So kung magiging 80 to 90% yung pagkakabit ng mga Poso Negro sa mga STPs na to, lesser na yung pollution entering the Pasig River. We were successful in doing that in Estero de Paco and Estero de San Miguel. We also did bioremediation technology at saka phytoremediation technology for the Pasig River. Nag-introduce din kami ng aeration system at saka isang successful doon is training of the river warriors. The river warriors are the volunteers from the area ng rivers. These are the people na talagang binigay nila yung pawis, dugo at saka lahat na nila para mapangalagaan yung ating mga kailugan. So I think heading the Pasig River Expressway will put to not lahat ng nagawa na to in the past eh. During the time ni Ming Ramos, yung piso para sa Ilog Pasig created awareness. During the time ni Ma'am Gina Lopez, yung Kapit Bisig para sa Ilog Pasig at saka PRRC created a lot of information na maraming tao gustong mag-volunteer as river warriors. So I think talaga number 1 pa rin eh. No to PAREX, no to Pasig River Expressway.
Okay. Thank you, Rich. At very creative din ang solution. Parang gusto ko yan with your bus ticket, meron ka din. Or ferry ticket, meron ka din.
Yeah.
Diba? So, why not go for creative solutions? Pwede naman gawa ng paraan. So, salamat, Rich. And now I move on finally to Paolo. In terms of urban design, architecture, what are the better alternatives that we can be looking at in terms of the infrastructure that the government and the private sector will be doing instead of something like PAREX?
Well, I agree with Sunny in that we have to maximize the potential of the east-west or the radials. I mean, if you look at Metro Manila, it's like a half moon. You have the spokes, which are the radials, and you have the circumferentials, right? So yung ginawa ng gobyerno sa EDSA is to put in rail, which is actually supposed to be first So when making an urban transport system, the priority should really be bus transit, and then you have things like taxis, which are shared singular vehicles, and then non-motorized transport. The last priority should be cars. So if you look at the spokes of the wheel, gaya ng sinabi ni Sunny, if we had rail, that would have solved the interconnectivity of the sections of Metro Manila with each other, and then rail in and out. So it's rail-based, bus-based, non-motorized transport, and huli talaga dapat yung cars. So in other cities that have limited or prevented more car ownership, like Singapore, you have to get a certificate of entitlement to be able to. I lived for 12 years in Singapore. I did not own a car. I never needed it. I could get anywhere within 20 minutes by taking the MRT or the bus or walking. So theoretically, we can do the same if we only land use planned the entire Metro Manila and connected that. Now going to the aspect na yung tinatanong mo sa urban design, which is my specialty. So urban design is between architecture, landscape architecture, and planning. So urban design is all the public open spaces between buildings. Maganda sa atin, we have world-class architects. I'm not a building architect, although I was trained as one. Wonderful buildings, but you step out of the there's no urban realm. There's no design of urban design to connect people in between buildings and the spaces in between buildings. So that's also the problem of what we have in the various networks we already have in the city, which is all of the MRTs. Once you get out of the terminals, you risk your life just getting to your jeep, your bus, or walking, because there are no sidewalks. There's no intermodal connectivity. So that intermodal connectivity is lost in the cracks because no one is responsible, and they do not consult the people who can design for them, which are landscape architects or mostly urban designers, or architects who are trained as urban designers. So there's that overlap. There's specialty, and there are a couple hundred of us who have done it here and overseas, and willing to give our expertise to the design that interconnectivity, which is very lacking, which goes to a lot of the deficiencies of the ferry system we have now. If you go to the PUP and try to walk from the PNR station to the PUP ferry station, it's a couple of 100 meters of isolated walkway, totally unsafe, totally unseen. So how do you expect people to use it? Makitid na siya, kulang ang ilaw, hindi nakikita. So it's not planned. It's always after the fact. The placements, locations of a lot of the ferry stations are all wrong, because they don't look at they were only put there just out of just to be fast, but they did not look like Guadalupe. It's a few hundred meters again through, and you have to fight with jeepneys and all sorts of other traffic just to get from Guadalupe terminal MRT to the ferry station. With the jeeps on JP Rizal are also not there. So there is a huge gap in the capacity of government to design using DPWH and other plantillas whose engineers are wonderful, but they just design roads. When we designed the Esplanade in Iloilo, we had to put the DPWH people who were tasked to implement the design through a one-day seminar to show them this is how you design and build for people, because sanay lang sila sa vehicles, for cars, trucks, bridges, and all of the details. In fact, only about 60% of our design was followed because a mindset nila pang kotse. Yung curbs for our walkways at the first phase, ang ginawa nila yung curb para sa kotse. Hindi naman dapat. So there's a different scale. We have a learning curve to go through for all of the 145 cities in the Philippines and the 1,500 towns, because we have lost the ability to design for people. Everything is for cars. That's why you walk out and you get run over. And finally, on what Rich mentioned, phytoremediation and bioengineering is also a specialty of landscape architects. And the event I came from just before this is a meeting of the Philippine Association of Landscape Architects, who are putting together the position paper that focuses on the impacts of the PAREX on the natural resource, both heritage and built parks that are on there, part of which I was involved with June Palafox in the initial wave for the PRRC. And phytoremediation and bioengineering is a more sustainable strategy of looking at solutions to riverbanks rather than pouring all of this concrete. The Japanese Public Works Department have shifted to bioengineering and phytoremediation, just like the Singaporeans, because they spend billions in replacing concrete revetments. So the Bishan Park, the very famous Bishan Park in Singapore, which won several awards, had a canal that was supposed to be repaired because it was already 20 or 30 years old. So the NUS ran a study, and it saw that to rehabilitate the concrete canal for flood control was going to cost 115 billion Singapore dollars. The bioengineering and phytoremediation, which is turning the canal, breaking the canal and turning it back into a natural waterway, cost only 50 billion. So they saved over $50 billion, and it created a better amenity for the surrounding housing. Which leads me to my last point. If we go on the rail-based system and we get our priorities right and our paradigms of planning right, land use is essentially, our problem is housing. That's something we never think of. All we think of is malls. All we think of is other things rather than housing. But the important thing of housing is always after the fact. That's why we have informal settlements, because people have taken it on themselves to solve the very pressing need. And just to let you know, in the full context of this, the Philippines has to build 5 times what Singapore built in the last 30 years just to catch up with the backlog of 6 million housing units. That's the immensity of the problem, but we focus on building new airports or building new expressways. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Paolo. And thank you also to Reach and Sunny. Unfortunately, we have no more time for this second segment, but thank you very much, Reach, Paolo, and Sunny, for joining us today in our show. You know, listening to all of you, I learned that really what we have right now is not the absence of solutions, not the absence of expertise, but rather misplaced priorities. And really for us to start claiming public space and really making public space benefit the people. So maraming salamat, Reach Peñaflor, Paulo Alcazaren, and Sunny Sevilla.
Maraming salamat din.
I'd like to call back on Jules to join me.
Hi.
Hello, Jules.
Hello. Okay, happy. Sobrang dami natin diniscuss today, and I'm so sure na marami sa atin ang nagtatanong kung saan tayo pwedeng magsimula kung gusto nating ipakita ang ating oposisyon dito sa PAREX.
Ayun. Okay, so paano nga ba? So sabi nga natin, let's talk solution, let's talk action. So actually merong petition ang Ilog Pasiglahin, No to PAREX, hashtag No to PAREX movement. And it calls on concerned agencies and Filipinos to help stop the proposed PAREX. Ang hashtag Ilog Pasiglahin at hashtag No to PAREX movement ay isang multi-sectoral coalition composed of mobility, heritage, culture, environment, health, tourism, economic reform, and youth advocates. O, baka pwede rin tayo magdagdag ng housing advocates as pointed out by Paolo a while ago, kasi that is part of the problem that we don't see. So anyway, Jules, you can tell us more about it?
Right, so we have a member of the movement here. Kasama natin ulit, nagbabalik si Haya Rendanya of the Move as One Coalition to tell us more about this. Haya, go ahead.
Hello po. So, inimbitahan lang po namin kayo to sign the petition. So, that's bit.ly/capital NOTO and then all caps PAREX. So yan pong hashtag na yan din po yung nasa Bitly. So pirmahan po natin siya. So far, meron na po tayong lagpas 70 plus na organizations na sumasali sa atin. At actually, lagpas 10,000 na rin po na signatories. So 9,000 nandiyan sa Change.org, pero may mga 940 plus po na meron sa Google Docs. So pirma po tayo para po masabi natin na thousands of citizens are against the PAREX construction. Back to you, Jules.
Thank you so much, Haya. Ayan so happy ang daming mga organizations na nagmo-mobilize ngayon. In regards to this issue, kaya naman supportahan natin yan if you are agreeing, of course, to this particular cause. Okay, Happy, we have reached the end of the show, and as always, we ask our takeaways. What's your takeaway, Happy, in this discussion for episode 6?
I like the phrase, let's not move cars, let's move people. So if this is a mobility problem, hindi natin dapat isipin paano natin ma-accommodate ang mas maraming kotse. Dapat ang iniisip natin is paano ba natin ma-accommodate ang mas maraming tao? How do we get more people to move from point A to point B? And when you think of it that way, alam mo, ang daming creative solutions, ang daming expertise that already exist. Solutions are already being done. So instead of trialing things out with such large budgets, with such large impacts, why not just replicate those that already work? So yun ang main insight ko today. Even just reading the chat box, ang dami nanditong a lot of people who are sharing kung ano yung mga alternatives and ideas. And alam mo yun, parang very rich tayo in solutions and thinking of alternatives. So why not enable those things to enable better mobility for people, not cars? Ikaw naman, Jules.
That's right. Ako naman, Happy, I always believe in this line, yung social progress with social justice. Definitely, we want progress. We want developments in our areas. But it needs to be ensured na kapag may progress na nangyayari sa isang lugar, dapat may social justice na aspect. When we're talking about social justice, kasama dyan yung consulting people. And when you're consulting people, hindi yan para lang noted. Dapat mag-matter yung mga inputs nila doon sa decision making itself. Kasi at the end of the day, hindi lang naman isang party, isang grupo ang makikinabang dito. It will also affect the stakeholders in that particular community. When we're talking about governance, Happy, it's not only government working there. You're also talking about private sector and civil society. These three are the key players of society at dapat lahat to may inputs at may ambag at dapat nako-consider ng maayos yung mga ambag nila. Of course, we recognize na nagre-reach out itong private sector. But at the end of the day, profit-oriented itong private sector kahit na gusto nilang makatulong doon sa mga as their solution. So kailangan mabalanse siya na kahit na merong profit silang makukuha dito, dapat sobrang makuha nila yung inputs ng mga citizens, yung mga nakatira sa communities na yon kasi sila yung maapektuhan ng mga grave effects kung meron man doon sa isang particular project, lalo na dito sa PAREX kasi sobrang haba, sobrang daming syudad ang maapektuhan dito. Kaya sana mapakinggan nila yung mga inputs ng mga organizations na nagsusulong ng kanilang panawagan patungkol sa PAREX. Yan ang aking take away. Okay, so dyan po nagtatapos ang ating show. Pero syempre ang ating community show ay isa sa mga efforts ng #CourageOnCoalition. Kung interesado po kayo dito, more than 80 groups na po ang part ng grupo na ito. Kung interesado po kayo sa ating lumalaking koalisyon tulad ng Courage On, No Lockdown on Rights Coalition at ang ating #PHVoteCoalition, mag-email lamang po kayo sa move.ph@rappler.com. At syempre, makitang-kita po tayong uli sa episode 7 ng ating community show na mangyayari in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks ang ating next show.
Yes, at yan talaga ang goal natin for this show, yung #CourageOnShow. We want to have very lively at makabuluhan na mga discussions para for us to really understand how can the people participating, sabi nga ni Jules, how can the people participate in these governance issues that, you know, in the end tayo naman ang naaapektuhan ng mga ginagawang project ng government. So, dito na po nagtatapos ang community show natin.
Yes, once again, this show is presented by Rappler's Move PH in partnership, of course, with Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom And of course, all our partners na nag-cross-post din po ng ating show.
Right. Shout out then, of course, to our partners for co-presenting this episode. We have Alt Mobility PH and hashtag Ilog. Okay, I always get this wrong. Hashtag Ilog Pasiglahin, hashtag No to PAREX Movement. So maraming salamat sa mga partners na yon. Don't forget, nasa taong bayan ang kapangyarihan. We are louder together. Once again, my name is Happy Ferraren from Rappler Plus.
Kumibo po tayo at magpakibo, kumilos at patuloy na magpakilos. Let us continue speaking truth to power. Maraming salamat po. Ako po si Jules Gia.
Tumindig, Makialam at Kumilos.
Courage on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.